Greetings, sir, of this may concern. Christian Eckler here, back with another movie review. And in today's movie review, I'm going to be reviewing the 1977 film The Death of Richie. The film stars Robbie Benson, Ben Gazzara, and Ellen Brennan. And the film is an adaptation of the novel Richie, which was written by Thomas Thompson. And this is actually based off a true story. This actually happened, I believe, somewhere around 1972, and the character of Richie and the surrounding characters of his friends and family are all based off of real people, and it's based off a real tragedy that happened. Essentially what this movie is one of those old after-school specials that you would find on TV, hence why the soundtrack does come off as cheesy and very of the time, and along with a couple of the performances being a little bit over the top. Nothing too distracting that'll take you out of the movie, but the performances do get, a little over the top at certain times. So you can very much tell that this movie is very much a product of the time it came out. But it's telling a pretty modern story. This feels like one of the early movies that have really tackled drug addiction, especially amongst the youth. And when watching this, I couldn't help but think, wow, this feels like the Euphoria of back then, Like, of course, it's not as stylized or whatever, but it does tackle teenagers dealing with substance abuse. And we get to see the day in the life of this teenager and see what really leads him down this path and how his surroundings really shape the ultimate downfall of him. So the thing I like about this is the story that's being told. It feels like something that wasn't really talked about, especially during that time. And so to have this movie exist just shows that, yeah, people have always been dealing with these types of issues, even going on 50 plus 60 years, So it's really cool to see that this movie, it does still stand up, you can still relate to this movie in this day and age, The three main stars give great performances, and the standout performance for me in this film was by Ben Gazzara, who plays the dad, and from beginning to end, he really sells you on this character. He embodies this guy really well, and for someone that is playing a vet, white collar, hard worker father, you can see things from his side, but also him being so uptight and being such an overprotecting father, you see things from Richie's point of view as well. So I really like how you get to see this dynamic play out throughout the movie. The cinematography of this film was pretty intriguing as well. I felt some scenes were shot with wide lenses and where the camera was positioned pretty low, so we're always kind of like looking up at the characters in certain scenes, and that really made the audience feel small in this situation. The situation that's going on throughout this movie is very dramatic, is very heavy, and when you're watching it, you just kind of just feel small in this situation. You have no control of what happens. You're just peering into the window and you're seeing how everything plays out. And in some cases, in reality, say if you have family members that deal with substance abuse, sometimes you do feel small in those situations where you don't have control over what your loved ones do, and you just have to hope and pray for the best, So I do like how those shots it kind of gave me that vibe a little bit when watching. So some of the negatives I have for this film, I did briefly mention earlier in this video, but I'll restate them again. One, the soundtrack, very cheesy and very of its time. I remember my mom and I were looking at each other while we were watching the movie, and we kind of like smiled and laughed at each other because we're like, oh, this music does feel very 70s. So it's just, that just put a good smile on our faces for sure. But some of the performances were a little over the top. Again, with the mixture of a little over the top performance with the cheesy soundtrack really makes the movie feel like a product of its time. And again, that's what gives that after school special feel, And the one major issue that I have about this movie is its title. I think this title gives away what happens in the end. Ultimately, that, well, Richie's gonna die. And I knew that when going into the movie because it's the title of the movie. And ultimately my curiosity was, well, how does Richie die? I didn't know anything about the movie, so going into it, I'm like, who's Richie? How does he die? And what happened? So those are really the main questions that really intrigue you going into the film, because it just gives away the ending at the beginning. And the book that this is based off of is actually just called Richie. It's just simply called that. So I wonder, thinking back on it, because I can easily say I prefer the book's title over the actual film title. But I think about it, and I think to myself, without knowing anything, and I just see a movie titled Richie, and it's from 1977, would I have really sat down and watched it? Like, would I have really selected to watch it? Something called The Death of Richie, it popped these questions in my head. Well, how did he die? What happened? And why did he deserve to die? I wanted to see the rhyme and reason for everything. So the title, I'm 50-50 on. Like, one, I feel like it does spoil the ending, but the how and why to everything is really intriguing, and ultimately the how, it was surprising to me. So and it was surprising to my parents too. So if you don't know anything about the true story, I highly recommend do not look up anything. Go and watch the movie if you want to. It's on Amazon Prime Video if you have Amazon Prime. If not, it is on Tubi, and it's on Freevee, on those, you know, free streaming services. So there will be some ads, but if you can handle the ads, I highly recommend sticking with it, because the movie it's pretty well done. So with all that being said, what do I give The Death of Richie? Well, it's not the greatest of films. However, it's not really terrible. It does its job well. I respect it for being one of the early movies to really tackle drug addiction, especially amongst the youth. So I have to give this a solid 3 out of 5 Skarsgårds. Yeah, 3 out of 5. And for context, if you want to know what that is out of 10 stars, that's basically equals out to like 6 out of 10 stars. So a little above halfway. So that is it for today's video. What are your thoughts on the movie The Death of Richie? Have you heard of it before? Have you seen it? Have you not? Let me know your thoughts down below. And as always, please like, share, subscribe, support the channel. It's always very much appreciated. The rendered image is a show I co-host my good friends Tyler and Shannon. Link to the channel will be down below in the description. So make sure to go over there. We go over all the latest movie news, updates, and trailers. So be sure to check it out when you have time. I hope you're all safe and well out there, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.